Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Hooked on Sports here on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you get your podcasting streaming services. My name is John Flynn, and thank you so very much for listening to the podcast or watching the podcast on YouTube today. So today is Thursday, November the 20th, and we have another week of NFL action to get you guys ready for. As per usual, I pick out a couple of two or three games a week that I will have my eyes watching and my ears open to see how these results shape up, and it's really gonna and it's really gonna be two big games between conference opponents, and then there's an interconference game that I wanted to put your attention on as well. Three games this week. So I'm going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Chicago Bears, and what I am looking to see for both teams, and I think more particularly the Chicago Bears. In this one against the Steelers, we'll have to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers and his injury situation. So this is as close to a must-win for the Chiefs in the regular season as there's been in a long time, and the Chiefs are coming off of a loss to Denver. And I'm also gonna preview a little more in depth the big the game between two first place teams in the NFC on Sunday Night Football between the Buccaneers and the Rams, and what I'm looking for from both teams as we head into the last third of the NFL season. So I want to start with the game between Pittsburgh and Chicago on Sunday because I think there are a lot of different layers to this ball game coming up on Sunday, and I think the main story obviously is about the wrist injury for Aaron Rodgers, because Rodgers suffered an injury on his wrist in the game against Cincinnati, and he is question feels like he's going to be a 50-50 shot to play on Sunday against the Bears, but Aaron Rodgers has had a pretty extensive history of winning ball games in Chicago at Soldier Field, because he did that for so many years during his time with the Green Bay Packers. A lot of big time regular season games, because that winner take all division game in 2013 where Aaron Rodgers found Randall Cobb on that 4th and 8 from midfield to put the Packers ahead in that one, a game where Rodgers came back from missing most of the second half of the season because of an injury. You had the one where Rodgers told the Bears fans that I own you. In This was, I think, in 2021 or something like that. And then of course he also won his only NFC Championship game. So his only NFC the championship game victory was on the road in Chicago on their way to winning the Super Bowl. So I do think it's going to mean something for Aaron Rodgers to give the Bears one final punch before he retires. But I think the reality of the Steelers is kind of settling in, that they are such an inconsistent football team, and that drives the fans in Pittsburgh and the Steeler fans around the country crazy, because they know how good the Steelers can be. It's just a matter of putting the puzzle pieces together on that. But my main focus of attention on this game is on the Chicago Bears, and the Bears have rattled off four straight wins, in four straight wins since coming off the bye week. I think it's five straight now. I think. Something like that, until most of the game against Minnesota last week, I had yet to see the Bears play a complete game, a complete 60 minutes of football, prior to the game last week. I mean, that's kind of why I did not pick the Bears to beat Minnesota last week, but but I think the Bears are going to have things to look at, and I'm looking at the offensive line, for the Bears going up against the Steelers defensive line, and that's going to be a battle because both lines are so well, when it comes to the pass, and both are really good when it comes to the run. So I think I heard, so what I think the Bears are going to try and do is they're gonna do everything they can, I think, to take the Steelers defensive line out of this game. And what do I think the Bears are going to do with Ben Johnson, under center there, because Ben Johnson has a similar system to Tanner Ekstrand, the offensive coordinator for the Jets. And the reason why the Jets scored so many points against the Steelers in Week 1, was because of running the ball outside the tackle. So whether it's DeAndre Swift or Kyle Moanagi, being able to run outside the lines, so it's going to be a really important, to have your tackles play at a high level, because if they can do that, if they can run block, so that's gonna open up the playbook a lot. That's going to keep, Caleb Williams from making the critical mistakes, and that was a huge focal point of conversation during training camp, because I remember that training camp practice where Caleb Williams threw 4 interceptions, in a training camp sessions, and I think that's really what Ben Johnson, has been really looking to hone in on, as they try to get something, and try to get something going with him, because the Bears can't afford to waste the talent of Caleb Williams. So considering that the Bears took him first overall in the draft, and the Bears have never had a 4,000 yard passer in their 100+ year history, and Caleb Williams is currently pacing just a little behind that. So we will see how that transpires. So I think it's obviously important to protect the football, because the Steelers cannot win games, without creating takeaways. I mean, they had 6 takeaways against Indianapolis. They won by 7. They had 5 takeaways against the Patriots, and they won, by just 7 points. So the Steelers are really going to have a defensive line. It's going to help if Alex Highsmith would be available and good to go for this one, because I think if the Steelers want to win this game, they're going to have to win with the strength of their team, and that is their defensive line. So I really want to see how that game transpires. I feel like there's some pressure on both teams, to win, because with Pittsburgh, you never know what tricks Baltimore has up its sleeve, and the Ravens got the Jets this week, and then they have Cincinnati before, on Thanksgiving night, before their big clash against Pittsburgh in Week 14 from M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. So I kind of think it's important here for the Steelers to find a way to win this game, because I think the Steelers have the Bears, and then I believe they have Buffalo coming up, and then the big game, against Baltimore, coming up on in Week 14. So that's going to be important to watch there. Now on to the Colts and the Chiefs, and with the Patriots winning, with the Broncos winning, it makes it that much more important for the Colts, to keep winning their games, because and I think now with the Colts coming off their bye week, that this is the stretch that they need, to really, prove to themselves, and prove to prove to the league that they're not a part that they're not going to be part of any of anything important here when it comes to having to risk a playoff spot on the line here. And if you look at the strength of schedule around the NFL, so the Colts have the fourth toughest schedule remaining in the NFL in terms of the opponents' winning percentage. So, because they have Kansas City, they have Houston. That's not going to be easy. They have Jacksonville twice. Those are going to be big games. And then they have San Francisco and Seattle. In addition to their big AFC South games that they have, so the Colts had 2 weeks to prepare for Kansas City, and this is going to be a really good catered to me with how good the Colts can be and how good they can feel about themselves. So headed into to a massive stretch of games, so which begins on Sunday. So the Colts are sitting there at 8-2. But I wonder aloud about the Chiefs because a really good matchup I think that'll be on display on Sunday is going to be Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback against Indianapolis Colts defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. Now, Anarumo has seen Patrick Mahomes 6 times in his career, in his coaching career, and all of them with the Cincinnati Bengals as their defensive coordinator, including 2 straight AFC Championship games at Arrowhead, which they split those two, and then in the 4 regular season meetings, they were all splits they split those games as well. So I think this is going to be a fun chess match, a chess match for in this game, but unfortunately, the Chiefs don't have the explosive playmaking at the running back position for Andy Reid to be able to make things happen on offense with the play calling, and that's really the sobering reality, and the Chiefs are just just too limited offensively. So that Patrick Mahomes has not been great since over the last month. As he hit his deep ball rate, deep throw has been inconsistent this year. He's only had 1 touchdown on a deep ball this year out of 44 attempts, which is pretty remarkable for Mahomes. But that's been the story the whole season, and additionally, the Chiefs have missed on a lot of opportunities in the red zone because their inability to convert drives into touchdowns in the red zone really cost them in the loss to Denver on Sunday. So the Chiefs are going to have to do a much better job executing in the red zone if they want to climb back into playoff positioning. So a big one in Kansas City. CBS is sending sending their Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson game team to Arrowhead for the weekend. And then the question for the Chiefs is the Chiefs haven't played a home game in nearly a month. So is playing games at Arrowhead what the Chiefs needed to get out of this recent funk that they had where they lost games to the Bills and the Broncos? That remains to be seen how that one's going to go. But I will tell you this: the Colts, Chiefs, and the Chiefs are favored by 3.5 points. This game was one of the toughest games of the league to pick. And in fact, the Steelers Bears was tough to pick against the spread. This game was difficult to pick against the spread. And this game is going to be difficult to pick against the spread. You got the LA Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers meeting up on Sunday Night Football on NBC. So I'm going to be really into this ball game coming up on Sunday night, where with the Rams and the Bucks. Now the Bucks started their season 5-1, but they have fallen back down to earth. They've lost 3 of the last 4, coming off a loss where they gave up 6 touchdowns to Josh Allen in a loss in Buffalo. So I think you really want to see if there's anything that the Bucks can work on, and get themselves back into winning ways. And I hope for the Bucks' sake that there is a little bit of a sense of urgency with this football team, because because Tampa is now 6-4. They are a game behind, a half game ahead of Carolina in the NFC South, and then the Falcons and the Saints, they're out of it. But it's going to be one of those two teams that wins the NFC South and makes the playoffs. So it would behoove the Buccaneers to come out and bounce back and play well. And despite all the injuries that the Bucks have, and there are numerous ones that are going to be so that'll be problematic here, for this ball game coming up on Sunday night. So, but I did see some promise when it came to them running the football. I do think that without Bucky Irving, they actually did a pretty good job. All things considered, Sean Tucker ran for 100 yards, and it's 100 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, I believe, on the day, but. Without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, it's going to be a pretty tough. But so they still have Emeka Egbuka. They got Tez Johnson, and then you're looking at from the tight end position, Cade Otton. But I really think that a Bucks healthy offensive line, I think, is going to be an important factor into this ball game coming up on Sunday night, and particularly Tristan Wirfs trying to guard against Jared Verse, and I think that's going to be a superb matchup between those two All-Pro candidates in Tampa and LA respectively. And the Rams offensive line has not played great in recent weeks, although most of the team has been pretty inspiring so far. But I do think the Bucks are going to have some matchups in this game regarding their defensive line, trying to utilize the exotic blitzes to go out and get after Matthew Stafford. I think it's going to be it's going to be a grind, I believe, for the Rams if they want to win this game coming up on Sunday night. So. Some big games coming up, and without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and post the picks and the spreads for you that I will be playing with this week. So last week, it's picking the game straight up. I went 10-5. My record is now 103, 60-1 on the season. And then against the spread, I went 7-8 last week. I am now 76 and 88 overall on the season. So we have 14 games to pick. We have the game tonight. We have 1 p.m. games on Sunday. 4 games in the 4 p.m. Eastern slot, and then the Sunday night and Monday night games. So let's start picking these games. The Buffalo Bills, they are on the road, favored by 5.5 points, taking on the Houston Texans, and this is a big game, I think, for Houston because they have the Colts. They have this game against the reigning league MVP, who reminded everyone why he was the league MVP a year ago after his 6 touchdown performance against Tampa Bay. I think, but I think the bad news for the Bills is that they're playing one of the weaker defenses in weaker secondaries in the NFL to the team that I believe has the best defense in football, and that's the Houston Texans. And the last couple of times Josh Allen and the Bills have played down in Houston, it has not been that successful for Allen and the Bills. That says and Houston is so well coached defensively, and the defense being the way it is, I think will keep the Texans in this game. So don't get me wrong, I think the Bills are going to win this game, but if this is a game where Josh Allen is going to have to bail everyone out on that roster, that's going to be awfully concerning going into the playoffs, assuming they make it, and having to play a team on the road like New England or Denver on the road in those spots. So I'm gonna take the Bills to win. I have them winning by a score of 20-17. So I'm grabbing the 5.5 point, 17-14, excuse me. That's my score. 17 Buffalo 17, Houston 14. So I'm gonna grab the points here with the Houston Texans. Now on to the games on Sunday. The Baltimore Ravens, they are favored by 13.5 points, taking on Tyrod Taylor and the Jets. Now, I think the Jets made the right decision. I think to to bench Justin Fields and uh, and even if and sure, Baltimore being at home for the first time in a month, I think could be a big deal in this one. But if you just look at the eye test, the last 3 weeks, they have not matched up to my expectation of them being the team that wins the Super Bowl this season. I'm because I don't think Baltimore is at the level I need them for them to be yet. There, but I do think they'll wind up winning this one. But I do think that Tyrod Taylor keeps it close. I mean, the last time Tyrod Taylor played close to a full game, it was a game against the Bucks where the Jets almost pulled out a miraculous victory over the Bucks in that one. Um, so I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to pick the Ravens though to win by a score of 27-16 over the Jets. Then the first game I mentioned earlier, the Chicago Bears favored by 2.5 points at home, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think this is gonna be an interesting game, obviously with both teams being above 500, but. I'm gonna pick the Bears to win. I don't trust the Steelers right now to be able to play consistently well, and I think this is gonna be the game that really it's a hits home everything that Ben Johnson's wanted from the Chicago Bears in terms of fielding a competitive team. So I'm gonna pick the Bears. I think they're gonna win. I think they're gonna cover. I have them winning 21-18 over the Steelers. The New England Patriots, they are on the road favored by 7 against the Cincinnati Bengals. And the big story in that one is the report that Joe Burrow was a full participant in practice this week. So the question is he going to play on Sunday? And if he plays on Sunday, it's going to make what Jamar Chase did on Sunday against Pittsburgh look a whole lot worse because Jamar Chase was ejected for unsportsmanlike conduct against a Steelers player, and he wound up getting ejected from that game, and he wound up getting suspended for this one. And it makes what he did a whole lot worse because that Burrow Chase connection. So what would have been a beautiful thing to see, and it would have made this a much more competitive game than what it was or what we thought it would be earlier in the season. So, but the Patriots are playing like the best team in the AFC right now. It's they're playing well. I think the Patriots are going to do enough. I think they'll beat the Bengals by a score of 28-13 coming up on Sunday. We got the Lions. They are favored by 10.5 points, taking on the Giants, and it looks like Jackson Dart is going to be back. Is going to be the guy that's going to go for the Giants. He came back from concussion protocol today in practice, and it looks and that appears to be the way it's going to go there for the Giants, but. I just think the Lions are going to are going to come out angry that after the way they got completely shut down in Philadelphia. I hardly anticipated being the same way for the Lions this week than what it was last week. I think they're going to put up a lot of points on the board. I'm going to pick the Lions to win this game by a score of 42-21 over the New York Giants. In NFC North battling Green Bay as the Packers are favored by 6.5 points, taking on J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm gonna guard against this being a competitive a competitive game, so that's why I'm going to grab the points with the Minnesota Vikings. So because Minnesota did beat the Packers twice last year on the road to going 14-3. So is it different this year? I do think it is that there's still there's some questions obviously for JJ McCarthy and whether he can start playing at a consistent level or not. But I just want to see more consistency from Jordan Love, but we are seeing consistency from Christian Watson. He hauled in a couple of nice touchdown grabs in Green Bay's win over the Giants last week. So I'm going to pick the Packers to win. It's gonna be a really good game. But I think the Vikings are going to be in this game. I think they'll cover. I'm going to take the Packers to win by a score of 27-22 over J.J. McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell, and the Minnesota Vikings. The Kansas City Chiefs are favored by 3.5 points at home, taking on the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm gonna say an upset special. I'm gonna take the Colts to win this game, and I just think the Colts the Lou Anarumo's facing the week is facing a not so strong addition of a Patrick Mahomes type of offense. Now, I would be concerned with how the Chiefs might attack up the middle because Travis Kelce is having a really strong season for Kansas City. So I'm going to take the Colts in an upset. I have them winning by a score of 23-20 over the Kansas City Chiefs. The Seattle Seahawks are favored by 13.5 points, taking on the Tennessee Titans, and this is the best bet of the week. I couldn't circle Seattle fast enough. If the Seahawks were favored by 20 points, I would pick Seattle. And look, Seattle played pretty well, other than the Sam Darnold's 4 interceptions. So I think that's something to be considered in this one. So I just don't think it's going to happen again this week. So I'm going to pick Seattle to win by a score of 26-3 over the Tennessee Titans, the team that's really ranked 32 out of 32 in the NFL. On to the 4 o'clock games now. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're on the road, favored by 2.5 points, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to. I've been an idiot this year for picking the Cardinals to win games. I mean, I picked the Cardinals preseason to make the playoffs. That does not turn out to be the case. But man, the Cardinals can move the ball up and down the field, and I question the consistency of Liam Cohen's bunch. After what we saw the last 2 or 3 weeks from the squad, that they barely beat the Raiders. They blew a huge lead against the Texans. They blew that, and then they pounced the Chargers and completely shut them down on Sunday. So what Jaguars team are we going to get? I think this is going to be a favorable matchup for the Arizona Cardinals. I think Michael Wilson's going to step up. Trey McBride is going to go off in this one. So I think it's going to be a good back and forth game. But I ultimately have the Cardinals winning by a score of 23-20 over the Jaguars. The Raiders are favored by 3.5 points at home, taking on the Cleveland Browns. And I did not mention the Raiders Cowboys result on my show on Tuesday, but man, the Raiders looked lost at times on offense. That the Raiders have, in my opinion, they have the worst offensive line in the NFL. And Ashton Genty only had 7 yards rushing on just 6 rushing attempts. And a lot of Ashton Genty fantasy owners were really disappointed in that with that result against the Cowboys. But nonetheless, I will pick the Raiders to win because Shedeur Sanders is starting for the Cleveland Browns. And what did Shedeur Sanders do in his first NFL action? It didn't turn out so well, didn't it? He completed just 4 of 16 passes for 47 yards and an interception. And there were other balls that should have been intercepted, but weren't. So again, this drove me crazy how the Browns attacked the draft process, and why I viewed the Browns as the worst team in the NFL. It's not going to be the case this year because the Titans are worse, but there's an argument that the Browns are the second worst team in the NFL, and I do think the advantages they have on the defensive line with Myles Garrett and Mason Graham will keep them in it. But I think not being able to beat Geno Smith, I think that's a problem. I'm going to pick the Raiders to win by a score of 19-16. So I'm going to grab the points with the Cleveland Browns. The Philadelphia Eagles, they are on the road. They're favored by 3.5 points, taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And look, even if this game goes exactly how I believe it's going to go, which is that the Cowboys making a couple of big investments in their defense with Quinn Williams and Logan Wilson, filling in two spots that were filled with non-NFL quality players for the better part of the season. And the Eagles not having Lane Johnson for 4 to 6 weeks because of an injury, leading to a limited opportunity for the Eagles to run the ball. And I think a game where the Cowboys will win by a score of 21-19 in an upset special. I have all those things happening. I am picking the Cowboys to upset the Eagles on Sunday, but I still won't believe the Eagles are anything other than the best team in the NFC. Regardless, it is a tough spot for Philly, but one where I think they'll be able to win every single game the rest of the way after this. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win and upset and salvage a split of the season series and win by a score of 21-19. Now, the New Orleans Saints, they are favored by 1.5 against Atlanta. It is a division rivalry that neither side likes each other. There is a lot of hate going on this. And I really think this game is going to be a reflection of the direction the two franchises are going in. And the Falcons, after that riveting win against the Bills, they have lost they've lost 5 straight games, and they really haven't necessarily passed the eye test on that as well. The defense is atrocious. Michael Penix Jr. is hurt, so Kirk Cousins comes in. Drake London is hurt. That's a problem. With his injury, he might be out for a couple of weeks. So you have that, and the Falcons don't have their first round pick to the Rams, and the Falcons So they signed Kirk Cousins to that big contract, inexplicably drafted a quarterback when the defensive rookie of the year, Jared Verse, was right there, and then they overcompensated by giving up their first round pick next year. So the Falcons, I think the Falcons have the bleakest future of any team in the next 2 to 3 years of any team in the NFC. So, it says, yeah, and I think Arthur Blank's got to step in and get a grip and get a clue about this with Rich McKay and Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris and with all the names that the Falcons interviewed to replace Arthur Smith, that the only reason Raheem Morris was hired was such that Rich McKay would retain power and influence within the organization. That's just bad there. But then you got the Saints and Tyler Shuck actually looked pretty good against Carolina. I'm not going to lie there. So I'm going to pick the Saints to win by a score of 21-13 over the Atlanta Falcons. Sunday Night Football on NBC. We got the Rams favored by 6.5 points at home, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And look, the things I mentioned about Tampa make me think that once they get guys back from injury, they'll get out of this recent funk. So, but I still think Tampa can be able to compete in this one on Sunday night based upon what they have and based upon what the Rams don't have at key positions. So don't get me wrong, the Rams are going to win this game, but I'm going to grab the 6.5 points with the Buccaneers, and I'll take the Rams to win 26-21 over the Buccaneers. And then finally, Monday Night Football on ESPN, and I believe ABC as well. The San Francisco 49ers by 7. They are they are favored by 7 points at home, taking on the Carolina Panthers, and I'm going to pick San Francisco to win. This is actually the first time Christian McCaffrey has played a game against the team that drafted him, the Carolina Panthers. It's crazy to think how that trade was 3 years ago, and he has not played the Panthers since that trade. So I think it's gonna be a motivating factor for Christian McCaffrey. I think he's gonna run wild against a suspect Panthers defense, and I don't think this is a game that the Niners can take lightly because the Panthers are right behind them in the NFC wildcard playoff picture. But I do think the Niners are gonna win and cover here, and I've been winning by a score of 28-18 coming up on Monday Night Football against the against the Carolina Panthers. So that's going to do it for this edition of Hooked on Sports. Thank you so very much for listening, everybody. My name is Sean Flynn, and saying so long, and I'll be back here on the podcast next week. Take care, everybody, and take care of yourselves, and have a good week, everybody. Enjoy watching the games.